let's get to Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. This match was incredible. This was one of the very best wrestling matches I have ever seen. The entrances were great. The match had this big match feel just like if it was in the Tokyo Dome. Ospreay had some great heat with the Canadian crowd. Just so many awesome spots in this match. I can't go through all of them. This match went about 40 minutes. So let's see what I do have for some notes here. Some extemporaneous thoughts. So there were some flips, reversals. Omega hit the You Can't Escape. Don Callis got involved a few times. He had these military-grade security guys, these goons that were like wearing commando gear and face masks. One of them just looked like Dana White. It's just like super jacked, bald guy with a face mask on. Well, I don't think Dana White would ever wear a face mask, but...
Touche, good point.
But yeah, so the military-grade security, that was the story going in, that Will Ospreay was insulting Canada. He was afraid, of Canada. And Don Callis provided some military-grade security for Will Ospreay when he went to Canada. And then Callis and his security got ejected, and then they came back out later.
Hell yeah.
So
Can't stop Don Callis.
So things, for me in this match, things started to pick up when Ospreay hit a shooting star press onto Omega's back as Omega was hung over the top rope. Then an Os cutter on Omega on the apron.
He's good. That's all I can say.
Omega, his head got bashed into the announce table, kind of a callback to Omega bashing Ospreay's head through a table at Wrestle Kingdom. Looked absolutely brutal the way these guys bash each other's heads in.
Yeah, a lot of stuff looked brutal.
Ospreay grabs a Canadian flag and wipes his tiz. He wiped his tiz with it. Yeah, I don't know if that's legal in Canada to do what that man did with the flag.
I don't think it is.
Putting it right in his tiz. So, the crowd went insane for that. I actually thought in that moment when he was doing that, I thought that somebody might throw something at him and cause everybody to throw stuff at him. It was riotous. That's how you start a riot.
I was surprised the way like you mentioned, the way he got that heat right away when he came out and the fans just hated him. I'm like, oh man, we're gonna have this is gonna be another stoppage.
I think he was even considering it when he did it. Do I have to run out of here?
Yeah.
Like Colby Covington in Brazil, another UFC reference there. But yes, a V-trigger from Omega into the fans, right into the crowd. Lots of hard headshots in this match. Omega bounces Ospreay's head off the steps. Both men busted wide open. Jazzwares can go ahead and get a set ready with some bloody steel steps for their blood and guts toys, because there was one scene where they were near the steps and the blood was just running down the steps in real time, like a movie.
Couldn't have done a better setup if it was even more fake.
If it was even more fake. Then Omega sets the steel steps on their side and pulls Ospreay up and DDTs Ospreay on top of the side of the steps. This one made me cringe completely. Brutal. Crazy.
Yes.
Omega countered an Oz cutter with a knee to the face. A sky twister press from the top to the floor by Will Ospreay. An Oz cutter to Omega, who barely kicked out of that one. That was that super, can barely move kick out. So great. Callis back out. Shields Ospreay from a V-trigger, but then just gets out of the way and lets Omega hit Ospreay with it. So Don Callis acted like he was going to protect Will Ospreay from the V-trigger of Kenny Omega. But then Callis did hand Will Ospreay a screwdriver. Ospreay stabs Omega with the screwdriver. He hits a hidden blade, then a Stormbreaker, goes for the pin, but at the last possible half second, Omega gets his foot on the rope, and this was one of the most amazing near falls I have ever seen.
I thought this was over.
I thought this was the end of the match. I thought this was perfect. I was like, this is it. You know, fine. You want to have Kenny Omega lose. You're going to use the screwdriver. Ospreay was working the cheap seats with that thing, showing everybody's goddamn screwdriver here. You know, he's like, hey, I got my screwdriver here in case you didn't see it. It's like it wasn't like he was holding a pair of tweezers. Like, I'm pretty sure people saw it.
It was good. It really built to that, yeah. So that was a perfect crescendo to end, and then it didn't. So well done.
And then that kick, that foot on the rope was I was just amazing. Like I said, I could not believe this spot. So then Ospreay hits a V-trigger, and then a one-winged angel goes for the pin, and Kenny Omega kicks out at one of the one-winged angel. So in case you wanted to know who's going to kick out of the one-winged angel, spoiler, Kenny Omega.
You can't use his powers against him. It doesn't work that way.
At one. He kicked out at one. Not even one, like just barely one, you know? Crazy. That was awesome too. Because you just didn't see that coming at all.
Especially after the last one where he barely got his foot on the rope. Oh, yeah.
Ospreay hit the controversial Tiger Driver 91. Such sorcery involved here. What did you think of the Tiger Driver 91?
It was one of the worst things I've ever seen, honestly. I've seen Misawa do it to Kawada mostly, and they're terrible too. But this one was even worse. Like it looked so bad. Omega's whole body weight was going forward. It feels like his neck took the whole hit. Man, I was like, I'm happy he got up, honestly.
It looked brutal. It looked bad. I don't think that they should do stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, especially against Omega, who had to spend almost a year away because of all the injuries he had. I know there were just a lot of nagging injuries, but I mean, God, we don't want him out any longer. He's put his body through enough.
Head and neck stuff to me is just not necessary. It doesn't really add anything, and I don't think they should do it. I mean, Misawa died in the ring from an internal decapitation. You know, it's not. It's one thing to say I'm willing to risk my paralysis or whatever, but I don't think any AEW fan wants to go to a show and and have the worst happen to their favorite wrestler. You know.
Yep.
I mean, you have Misawa who, like I said, died in the ring, and then you have Shibata who had to have his brain removed from his skull during his injury from his brain swelling, you know? So I just don't think head and neck stuff. I mean, it's one thing if you want to lay in a shot that's stiff, okay, fine. You know, people even get knocked out, we were just making fun of the Brie Bella kick, but yeah, I don't think that stuff should be there, and I think that it's just I just don't think I'm not going to be the guy to cheer for it. That's all. I'm not going to kind of, take any stars away from the match or take anything away from the match or anything, but you are just not going to catch me in any way endorsing that.
Especially if that was not in this match, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't do anything to them. It doesn't take away one iota of greatness from this match. So that's even worse.
And it's the same thing with people who still want to do chair shots to the head. It's you don't need to do it. The only thing any logical person is thinking about is the literal damage you're doing. So you're not taking things to a fun new level, in my opinion, with certain things. So, yeah. So I just wanted to get that in there.
Sure.
Get my shit in.
Brother.
So, Hidden Blade, Stormbreaker, 1, 2, 3. Will Ospreay pins Omega. Hashtag and new IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. Overall, Kris, what were your thoughts on the match?
I came out. I always knew Will Ospreay was very good, but I came out thinking he's one of the all-time, maybe not all-time best, but right now he's definitely one of the greatest. I could watch any match of his. I watched that match that you mentioned with the Amazing Red and him, and that was great.
You did watch that one?
Yeah, he's just a top-tier wrestler. And I don't know why I always had this bad taste in my mouth about him. Maybe I'm just listening to Vader too much. But no, he's great. I can watch any Ospreay match. I'm looking forward to the third match in their series, wherever that will be.
You already know I give wrestling fan Kris the homework to go and watch some amazing Red matches on YouTube.
Correct.
Yes, that's what we do around here. But yes, no, that was a great match. And like I was telling you in that amazing Red match, like they made it seem like Red was going to beat Will Ospreay when he was IWGP World Champion in that match. It was so good.
Yeah, Ospreay does a great job of doing like those the quote unquote new like indie stuff, like the big fancy moves and all these impressive things, but also he does a great job of selling and acting like he might lose and being in a pitfall. So that's why he's great.
And I do appreciate how in the Omega and Ospreay matches, you kind of had in the first match Kenny Omega dominating things, and in the second match Will Ospreay dominating the match.
That's why I think there's going to inevitably be a third one, because they have set that up very well.
Like they didn't need to do some spot where the momentum shifts away from Kenny.
Yep.
Like obviously there was the screwdriver, which I guess you could say, but it was just. These guys are beating the hell out of each other. And this time, Ospreay is just beating the hell out of Kenny Omega more. We don't need to have this, how could he be beaten? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Like take away his magical superpowers, take away his shoulder, whatever. It was just, no, I'm just kicking the shit out of you for the 40 minutes here, basically.
Yep.
But yeah, so I thought in this one there was a lot more offense from Ospreay. And yes, you're right. Will Ospreay is one of the absolute best wrestlers in the world right now, for sure.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there. When we have Ospreay, Omega, Danielson, and Okada. And plus, think about it like this. On this same card, Tanahashi wrestled. Sonata wrestled.
Yep.
You had Hiromu Takahashi on the pre-show. So you're talking about who are the best wrestlers, even just in New Japan. It's got to be Okada and Ospreay, in my opinion. And
definitely.
As far as AEW goes, again, Punk was on this card. The Bucks were on this card. Moxley was on this card. Hangman was on this card. The best wrestlers in AEW are Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson. So you have to say that really these four guys probably the best four wrestlers in the world right now. Just take your pick on any given day. Omega, Okada, Bryan, Ospreay, right?
Definitely. I agree.
It's tough. Seth Rollins is up there.
Yeah, but he's probably 5.
Yeah, just even if sometimes if you're talking about who is the best, when you get up into that upper echelon, sometimes it's just a matter of not who's actually better, but just who had the opportunities to do. Like Seth Rollins is not going to have a Forbidden Door dream match scenario come up anytime soon. Obviously, this match with Finn Balor at Money in the Bank, it's probably going to be pretty damn good. It's probably going to be great. But, until we see basically Seth Rollins versus Roman in some big super fight, or just an amazing 40-minute match from Seth Rollins, which there have been, I just think he's in the conversation, but these four guys are the best in the world right now, in my opinion.
It's absolutely.
So yeah, that was my thoughts on Ospreay, Omega. Better than their first match at Wrestle Kingdom? Tough to say, just because I just thought that was a uniquely good match at Wrestle Kingdom. There was more. It was definitely a logical sequel. Keep the story going. They didn't repeat everything that they did. They did every single move basically, but they didn't kind of tell you the same story. But sometimes the original is just better. But I'd have to go back and rewatch it. I only remember how it made me feel because I'm a wrestling fan. I only care about how things make me feel.